All right, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Good, yeah, still hanging in? Okay. Well, I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. She is the CEO of WorkJoy. Please join me in welcoming Tina Robinson to the stage.
All right, if you're okay, this freaks me out to be up here. I noticed there's no podium. I said, please, for the love of things holy, no podium. I'm going to make a confession and give you guys an out. So I was speaking at a conference last month, and in the survey feedback, I was told that I required too much audience participation, and that the people were there not to engage with each other, but to hear a lecture. So this is your out. If you would rather hear me speak for 45 minutes and not speak to anybody else in the room, you may go now and forever hold your peace. I will wait 5 seconds. Okay, good. Yeah, I was like, interesting perspective on conferences. So I'm so excited to be here. So I'm going to ask you guys some simple questions, warm up. They were serving s'mores upstairs. You're probably on a sugar high. Raise your right hand if you want to feel more engaged at work. Now, raise your left hand if you want to work with more engaged people. Now, keep both hands up if you want both. Okay, good. All right, you're in the right place, so I'm really glad. This is me, and this is me. Where? Hold on. Oh, no, that's the next slide. So I'm going to ask you, before I tell you about me, I want you to think of when you last felt engaged at work. Think about that. Think about where you were, how you felt, what you were doing, who you were with. For those of you who have done some of the mindfulness stuff, get into your head a little bit. Get that image in your head, get that feeling. Because I'm going to have you share it in just a minute. So this is me, and I'm going to actually tell you about a time when I was disengaged. So I was working for a large tech company, as many of us do. It wasn't LinkedIn. And I had been promoted several times because I'm weirdly good at fixing things and solving problems that nobody else wants to solve. So there was yet another big global icky program without any support, no executive following, that needed a leader, and the masochist I am said that would be great. So I came into this role. 3 months in, I realized I was absolutely not the right person for this job. It wasn't using my skills. I dreaded work. Every Sunday night, I went to bed with an image of a tidal wave about to smother me. Now, my therapist said that wasn't normal, and it was becoming my new normal. So after 3 months, I screwed up all of my courage, and I went to my boss. And I said, hey, I'm not the right fit for this job, but here's an idea of what is. You need this skill set, this kind of experience. I've even identified a few people who I think would be a really good fit. It's just not me. So I'd like to go do something else. Now, I've been teaching leadership and coaching for a long time. So I expected him to follow with, of course, perhaps there'd be a hug, there would be an offer of a beverage of some kind. Instead, he said to me, well, but the company needs you in this job. It's too political right now. And I went, okay, so did you not watch the Hallmark Channel movie? Because you're not playing the role you're supposed to play. So I went back to my job, and I had title and money and all the things that you're supposed to want, and a lot of the things that make us feel good. Still, me, wave, went to him a month later. I said, I've actually identified 2 people. I've written you a job description for what this role really needs. Help me out here. And he said no again. And that was my experience, being gobsmacked by how crushing it feels to be disengaged. Now, I eventually left, and I'd like to think that they lost out on somebody decent, but it actually meant that I was released to go do great things like here. So I want you to turn to the person next to you as we get into the interactive part and think back to that memory of when you felt engaged. And I want you to share that out loud with somebody. 30 seconds, go. Okay, let's come back. Let's bring it back. We're bringing it back. We're bringing it back. This is why people lecture, because it's too much fun to talk to your colleagues. Okay, good energy. It feels good to be engaged. So why I am here is I'm going to help you reframe engagement, because I have a theory that we've been doing it wrong for a long time. So we're going to reframe it. Then I'm going to introduce something that I call the 3 Ps. And you'll notice that I like threes. I think in threes. And I think a lot of humans think in threes because our brains are too full to go to 4. And then we're going to discover the 3 Ps for yourself, as well as how you, as a representative of an employer, can help the people in your life embrace their own 3 Ps. Okay, so we know a lot about what I'm going to call disengagement. Now, I'm going to flash a bunch of statistics at you. Somebody posted it in the feed, a picture of a meme that says 70% of stats are made up on the spot, which I'm like, perfect timing. These all are real stats, and I think the slides will be available, but these are all from real reports. So we know our friends at Gallup, right? This is a statistic that we've been seeing for how many years? Like lots, right? And this number hasn't budged. So something's going on. We cannot seem to crack this. So 31% of US and Canada employees, we'll call that North America, and only 15% worldwide are engaged. Managers account for 70% of the variance. This is also from our wonderful friends at lovely Gallup. So managers have an influence over how engaged their employees are. All stuff we know. 50% of US employees are searching for new jobs or watching. Half of you in here are on your phones right now looking at job postings and are probably on LinkedIn not posting gorgeous pictures of me, as you should be, but looking at job postings. So thanks for that. 27% of employees left their jobs in 2018. This is from a survey, or from a workinstitute.com study. Turnover has gone up between 2010 and 2018, also from the Work Institute, 88%, which I think is remarkable. So that is the trend that they've seen. So the numbers in 2010 to 2018. So there's turnover, and for anybody in this field, we know that there's a cost to turnover, and it depends a lot on where you work, the level of the role, all sorts of good stuff, where you live, but it costs gobs of money to replace people. So what we've been trying isn't working. And I was talking about this, my thoughts on engagement, to somebody over lunch, and she said, oh, that's really interesting. What you're saying is that most companies approach engagement from an outside-in perspective. How many companies try to get you to fall in love with them? I was talking to somebody who was interviewing up at Airbnb, or had worked with them. And he said the interview process is all about, no, I love Airbnb. I've been using them for years, great place. But I think this is typical. They want you to sort of prove how much you know about them. There are certain employers who expect you to read some long culture manifesto. Now, it's important to them, but sometimes the interview process feels like a contest to see how much research you've done and how much you are going to pledge to fall in love with them. And then engagement efforts become things like, here's some free kombucha. Would you like to bring your snake to work? Here's another t-shirt. I have pet birds. Weirdly, no employer has ever said, oh, we'd love for you to bring your incredibly loud pet parrots to work. That would make me engaged. It's not happening. But they give us stuff, they offer us stuff, and it's outside-in engagement, and it's not moving those numbers. So what if engagement was an inside-out? It means inside us is where engagement starts, and that all companies have to do is step out of the way to let us be engaged. So outside-in isn't working. We're going to try inside-out, because what becomes possible if you actually fall in love not just with your employer, not just with your job title, but you actually fall in love with what you're doing. And probably That was part of the experience that you just shared with the folks next to you. So I want you to think about this. What becomes possible if you are able to fall in love with what you're doing? And if you're already in love with what you're doing, how that feels. My husband decided at the age of 8 he was going to write about cars. He had Car and Driver, Motor Trend, all these magazines as a kid, realized he's not going to be a Formula One race car driver. He was fairly self-aware at the age of 8. Realized his father wasn't a billionaire and it probably wasn't going to happen. And he's reading his car magazine. He's like, these guys get to go to the races and write about them. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Seriously, as a child, he spent 17 years with a little place called Car and Driver. He has test-driven cars around the world. He's raced. He's done all this stuff. Now he writes about classic cars, and he's this living, breathing example of he actually really loves what he does and all the things that have become possible for him. So we're going to reframe engagement. I'm going to introduce something that I call the 3 Ps, and you've probably seen a version of this before. I'm a big fan of simplifying. Our world is too noisy, and my brain is too full to understand anything larger than this kind of model. And it's also super easy to draw on a whiteboard or a napkin or a table or a wall, whatever you need to explain it. Okay. So it's power, also called your superpowers, what you do best. What are you known for? What's your reputation? What's your skill set? What have you honed? What is your expertise? What do you do best? Passion. What do you love? What lights you up? What gets you in flow? What makes you happy that it's almost Monday? What would you do if you weren't even paid to do it? And then I'm going to call it the 1P, but it's really sort of purposeful priorities or prioritized purposes. You can actually pick that. What do you put first? What do you prioritize? What's most important? What are your values? What do you stand for? And ideally, we are looking for the intersection of that. And this is the sweet spot where we feel engaged. Now, many times we get maybe 2 out of 3. How many folks in here feel like they have 2 out of 3? Okay, how many folks feel like they have 3 out of 3? How many folks think they have 1 out of 3? How many folks think I have like 0 out of 3? And we will find help for you. You might need more than the scented oils. I think we'll have to amp that one up. So our job as leaders, and as both leaders of other people, leaders in various organizations, but leaders of ourselves, whoa, turns out I can't hit myself. Leaders of ourselves is we have to find our sweet spot. We have to help others find their sweet spot. So the rest of our time together is going to be practicing on ourselves so we can make this real. I'm a big fan with any kind of speaking, training, it's making it real and making it practical and making it value added. So you walk out of here, not in theory, but, oh, I actually learned something. So first, your superpowers. What you do best, your skills, competencies, what you're known for. I want you to write down, if you have paper, if we have moved beyond paper in the world that we're in, that's okay. Maybe just keep it in your head, write it on some kind of magical device that you have that allows you to draft things. What do you do best? What are you good at? Because then I'm going to have you share it with the person next to you. Say these things out loud. I am really good at project planning. I am really good at leading teams. I am really good at turning chaos into order. Okay. Think, write, speak, go. You are writing until you don't need to write. If you're more of a talk out loud, that's fine too. You get to choose. I'm empowering you.
We got a head start. We were excited.
I know. Well, that's you should go for it. do you do best?
All right, let's come back together. All right, let's come back together. So it turns out that my natural style of walking in the crowd and asking people doesn't work when you have a lavalier mic, because I kept taking off my clothes in front of people, and I think I scared people into, I'm like, I'm really not stripping in front of you. I just don't want this conversation recorded forever. So, okay, let's shout out one thing that you are great at. Let's just hear a few things. Shout it out. Networking. Finding unicorns and squirrels. Yes. Candidate experience. Listening. I heard managing up over here. Influencing people. Conference calling. Wait, conference calling? Problem solving. I was like, yay. Right up there with faxing. So, nice. I'm really good at typing. Strategizing, excellent. Okay. So, good. That was power. You all have superpowers. That is the first P. And guess what? If you had a hard time, if you were sitting there writing and you couldn't think of anything, I'm going to put a plug in for LinkedIn. Go to your LinkedIn recommendations. Even if you just need an energy boost, pour a glass of wine and just read what nice things people have said about you. The best Saturday night I've ever spent. So, but many times people know your superpowers and will call them out when you're struggling. So ask other people, ask your peers, check out your performance reviews if you have those. What are people saying? What have you said in your self-reviews? Okay. Next P is passion. What brings us joy? What lights us up? What makes us look forward to Mondays? Now, many of us do not have an all-consuming passion. Many of us have a passion that feels sort of broad. My passion is the intersection of humans and work. Now, that's pretty broad, and it tackles coaching and consulting and advising and training and all these other great things, leading, managing teams. But it's still something that lights me up, which is why I am here. So, same thing. We're going to have you write your responses to a few questions. When am I in flow? When am I in the zone? When have I forgotten time? And I look up and I go, oh my gosh, 3 hours have passed. What would I do if I wasn't even paid to do it? I know folks are like, yeah. There are probably parts of your job or even things that you do on the side that even if you weren't paid, I would speak if I wasn't paid, and most of the time I'm not paid. So clearly I love it. I would probably coach and I would train and I would also teach if I wasn't paid to do it. It's nice to get paid because I live in LA and I have a mortgage and hungry birds, but I would do it anyway because I'm in flow. And then what do my friends and family say that I love most? Again, use the people in your life and then share it out loud. So say to somebody, this is what lights me up. This is what brings me joy. Go. right. Let's come back together. So who wants to shout out a passion? What makes you happy? People. Mentoring, excellent. Writing offer letters? Or getting offer letters? Both. Good. Finding people jobs, matchmaking, good. Networking, transforming. A few people said family. Excellent. One more over here. Making connections. If only you were in a place that could allow you to do that right now. Good. Very nice. Okay, let's go to our third P. This is purpose and priorities. What do you stand for? What's important? These are things like family, spirituality, responsibility, security, but also things like reward, power, money, goals. All those things are important, and there's no judgment to any of those. We all have our own set of values that maybe ebb and flow a little bit, but many of them have been with us for a long time. And these, even if we're unaware, they're the guideposts in our life. We tend to make decisions based on these. If they're not being honored, we feel it, even if we can't quite put our finger on it. And oftentimes, these are what cause us to stay somewhere where we may not be happy, because you start saying, well, I have financial security, or I like working on team, or I value human connection and I have a nice team, even though I don't really like what I do. So sometimes these are what keep us where we are. So I want you to think about what's most important for you. 2, 3, 4 things. What do you stand for? What are the lines that cannot be crossed for you? Is it balance? Think about them, share them, say it out loud, and then we'll come back. All right, let's come back together. All right, how many people are feeling like there's too much interaction? All right, I swear I'm going to read every survey response from all of you, and I will find you if you said that. I really wish she had just lectured for 45 minutes because then I could just check my phone and do my email and work on my taxes like I do in all the other presentations. Right. Okay. What's a priority? Shout it out. Family, work-life balance, growth, creativity, respect, authenticity, integrity. Happiness is a value, absolutely. Success. Girls? Morals. Oh my gosh, this is all being recorded. They're like, yeah, Tino, unfortunately, we can't have you back until you get your ears checked. Excellent, not girls, good. How about one more back here? Spirituality, and no values in that back corner. Everyone note who they are. Unfriend them. Okay. So again, I heard really good things here, and this is sometimes hard to articulate, but if you really think about it, our values guide our decisions. When I was at that large tech company, a lot of my values were in sync, and so that was a little bit of an anchor. And so it's a good thing, but you have to be careful to not let that outweigh some of those other things too, because we all deserve to be happy at work. And yet, sometimes there's a process of having to give ourselves permission to do that. So, I love quotes, and I thought this one was good. Einstein was known for saying smart things. So, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them, which is probably what's happening with engagement. If we keep taking an outside-in approach, we're not going to get over that 30% mark. So, imagine if your employer asked you what your 3 Ps were and then said, okay, how do we figure out how to get you closer to your sweet spot? What if you asked your people once a week, how happy were you at work, scale of 1 to 5? How much did you enjoy being here this week? And if it was anything below a 5, what can we do to help you get up? Pretty simple. I mean, if it's pay me $1 million and I want an executive suite and all that, okay. But oftentimes there's small things that we want. I'd like to be more creative. I'd like to be able to use this. I'm working, my hours are too long. Can I work from home 1 day per week? Oftentimes there are things that are very much in our realm of the possible. So I'm going to ask you, what's one thing you are going to do to feel truly engaged? Because engagement starts in here and it starts with you. How many folks in here are lead people? If you are not engaged, 70% of the engagement of the people on your team is influenced by you. So engagement has to start with you. So take that ownership of that and walk out of here thinking about this one thing that you're going to change in your world, in your life, to feel truly engaged. So write it down, do what you need to do in order for you to remember it. And I think for this one, I am going to have you say it out loud. There's real power in saying something out loud, even to strangers. So you've written down one thing, just one thing that you're going to do, and I want you to say it out loud to a person near you, and maybe even a person that you haven't talked to yet. And I promise it's my last interaction request. right. So, I'm not going to make you say what you're going to do. That's a little bit more private. For those of you who were struggling with this, go small. It doesn't have to be something big. Incremental change is just as incredibly powerful as big change. So think transformation with a little t versus big T. So what we learned. Engagement at work feels great because you all had that feeling. You shared that. We know how it feels to be engaged. And it's possible. Loving what we do is an important first step. We don't have to love everything. We don't have to love every part of our job. But isn't it cool if somebody asks you, so do you like what you're doing? And you can honestly, truthfully say yes. And how weird it feels when you start hedging and you're like, look at that alien spaceship, and then you run out of the room. Right. I've been there. And then the key is finding your sweet spot. So thinking about your 3 Ps, and also as people leaders, helping your people go inward and think about their 3 Ps. And then as a people leader, what can you do to help them both identify it as well as do something? So what we're going to do here, empower, which is a theme, the unlocking of the 3 Ps in yourself, give yourself permission, as well as the folks on your team. Hire for the sweet spot. I think that there's something fundamentally broken about recruiting now. And I have dear friends who have been doing this a long time. But I know so many people looking for work and so many recruiters who say they can't find people. So there's something weird going on. So what if we started to hire people who were already engaged, rather than hire people who had memorized everything on our website and then hope that enough bring your snake to work days and free beer in the office are going to make them engaged. Hire people who already love what they do. And you can interview for that. And then be game for the reframe. Experiment. We have to get more than 30% of folks engaged. That's a huge waste of energy, time, resources that can be put into solving a lot of our world's problems. I'm a little bit of an idealist, but I think that we really can change the world by helping get people more engaged. So WorkJoy is my brand. Now you have a little bit of an idea why I named it WorkJoy, because I think I've been pursuing that my whole life, and I have a passion for this, and I love the intersection of humans and work, and I really do feel that we all can find joy in whatever we do. Reach out. I'd love to say hi, link to me. I'm on LinkedIn. And with that, we have a few minutes for questions. We have about 2.5 minutes if anybody has a question about engagement. Yeah, please. I'm going to, oh yeah. I've always wanted to be like Oprah, Okay. But you just ruined it for me, so thanks.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think learned a lot about myself. Did a little bit of bragging, I guess. So my question is, where do we start at a company level? Where do we start with engagement?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to use the classic consulting answer of it depends. How many of you have hired or have been consultants, and that's your favorite answer? But it really depends. I think one of the worst things an employer can do is put out an engagement survey and do nothing with the results. It feels demeaning, it feels demoralizing, and you will never fill out another survey for them again. So if you've done any kind of surveys, do something with it. Even if it's small, find one thing in there and just tackle it and promote it and advertise it and get people's input on what you can do to make that one thing better. So maybe identify 3 areas where you can move the needle based on the feedback that you have, and then do it. It doesn't have to be big, but it does need to be promoted so people can see that there is an effort being made. Great. Okay, with that, I'm giving you exactly 54 seconds of your life back. So thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful rest of the day.